Hello everyone, Mariko Berg, realtor with Bridgewell Real Estate Group, and today's video I wanted to give you all the information that I know about the closing day, also known as the completion day, and essentially what happens on that day. But with that being said, it's not just about the completion day, it's also about the preparation up until the completion day, which is actually just as important, if not more important, than the actual completion day itself. But starting this video off is just what is the definition of the completion day, and it is synonymous with closing. So closing day, when I'm talking about closing costs, I'm talking about costs that are due on the completion day, in addition to things like the purchase price and those funds. But again, completion day, what does that mean? It's essentially the day that the title is registered and the current buyer becomes the new owner of the property. And so on this day, in order for that to happen, all of the funds from the buyer need to be transferred to the seller. And so this is something that is facilitated by a notary or a lawyer. So both parties, the seller and the buyer, are going to have their own separate either notary or lawyer. And in this video, just for simplicity's sake, I'll just say a notary, but really you can choose whether or not you want to use a notary or a lawyer. The biggest difference is just that if something goes wrong and you need to pursue something in court, a lawyer can represent you, whereas a notary is going to have to refer you to a lawyer to represent you. So both of them can do the conveyancing, both of them can do the title transfer, but only one of them, a lawyer, will actually be able to represent you if something goes seriously wrong and you were to pursue legal action. So that's the main difference. But starting with the completion day definition is important, but I want to kind of just go back a little bit and tell you about preparation for the completion day. And so on the completion day, you're going to be required to bring funds. And so part of those funds outside of the purchase price are going to be closing costs. So closing costs are really important for you to either work with your realtor or your mortgage broker to estimate in advance when you're purchasing a property, just because you never want to come up short and have a scare or a surprise on the actual completion day when you need to bring your funds to the notary. So closing cost examples are things like additional taxes, so property transfer tax, GST if it's a pre-sale or a new build property, also whatever fees you have to pay to your notary. Those are all examples of closing costs. And so you want to make sure that you're not going to come up short. And also just that you're not surprised about, the statement of adjustments when you receive it. You see that there's an extra $10,000 as an example or something like that. Nobody wants to be in that position. So when you're preparing for the completion day, you should really be making sure that you're crystal clear about exactly what the cost to purchase a property is going to be, and working with your realtor and your mortgage broker to really determine what those closing costs are. So moving on, once you're confident with your purchase and the closing costs and how much it is going to be exactly in terms of purchasing price all in, what happens is obviously you remove subject on the property, you hand in the deposit, and then we're preparing, making sure that as a realtor, part of my job is to be sending all of the paperwork to your notary. And so it's not something that you have to do yourself. We have conveyancers in the back end to support us as realtors at our brokerage. And then the conveyancers are communicating with the notary's conveyancers to basically put together a statement of adjustments that you're going to review when you meet your notary, usually 1 to 2 business days before the completion day. So what that means is the statement of adjustments is a document that shows all of the debits and credits, and then it will basically tally it all up to show you exactly what funds are required to close. So for example, it'll show the contracted purchase price and what you've agreed to pay, less the deposit that you've already paid, but then maybe plus property transfer tax, and it'll go back and forth like that, pluses and minuses, to come up with a number. And so that statement of adjustments is prepared with everybody's help, my conveyancer, the buyers or the seller's agent's conveyancer, depending on whether you are a buyer or a seller, all of the notaries that are involved, both the buyer's notary and the seller's notary, all come together to basically put all of these costs together for you, and then prepare both the seller and a buyer with a statement of adjustments. Different versions, but equals the same thing, or equals the same end result. And so in that situation, what happens again is a couple days before the completion day, usually 1 to 2 days before, you're reviewing that statement of adjustments. And then if you're a buyer, what happens is that you have to actually provide those funds to the notary by form of bank draft. And you usually do that a couple days before the completion day so that they have it ready to go. And then on the completion day, those funds are actually transferred so that that day can be smooth, quick, efficient, and everything's done properly so that they can then register it at Land Title Office and you become the homeowner. So if you're on the seller side of things, you're also reviewing a form of the statement of adjustments. So for example, it would be the purchase price, that you are going to be receiving, less any commissions. That would essentially equate to whatever the net profits are for you. And then you would receive that money on the completion day, and you would no longer be the owner of the property because the buyer would have title registered and transferred to them on that day. So that's really what the completion day is. It's facilitated by the notary or the lawyer that's involved. It does involve both the buyer and the seller reviewing those documents a couple days beforehand, the buyer providing the funds to their notary so that the day itself can go smooth and title registered. And as a buyer, you officially become a new homeowner, which is really, really exciting. But there is a lot of prep that's involved in it. You're not necessarily going to be the one that has to provide the paperwork. That's really what the realtor, the mortgage broker, and our conveyancing teams are there for. We're working with the notary actively just to make sure that day goes smooth. But really, you need to make sure that you're there and you're aware of the closing costs, that you go to meet with the notary that you've hired a couple days prior to the completion day, provided them with the exact amount of funds you need. And then on the actual completion day itself, it's really just a matter of waiting for your notary or your realtor to notify you that the registration has gone through, they've received the registration number, and it's a done deal. On the day of, most of the time you don't actually have to do anything other than just wait for that confirmation. And then once your realtor has that confirmation, they'll be able to organize with the other party to make sure that the key transfer is all ready to go. And it's basically, once you have that registration number, you're confirmed that you're able to either give the keys or receive the keys on the actual contract in possession day. So I hope that that really clarifies everything about the closing day, not just what happens on the closing day, but how to prepare for the closing day when you meet with your notary or lawyer, and also just the importance of making sure that you're super aware of what your closing costs are. But again, my name is Mariko Berg, realtor with Bridgewell Real Estate Group. I'm located in Coquitlam, but I serve all of the Lower Mainland. And I really hope that this video was helpful for you. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me anytime. And make sure to like, subscribe, or comment to my channel. I'm trying to provide as much information as I can with regards to real estate topics that are important, frequently asked questions, things like that. So stay tuned for more content in 2020. And I hope I'll see you guys around on my channel. Have a good one, guys.